Welcome to Fighter T. I'm your host. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing targeting philosophy, targeting thoughts, and ultimately you're going to see that it's all about angles. So one of the first things to think about when it comes to targeting in the SCA and heavy fighting is always remember what is and isn't a legal target. Sniping your opponent's hands doesn't do you any good because by the rules of the sport, the hands are invulnerable. Same for the knees and below. It's 1 inch in from the wrist, 1 inch above the knee, everything in between. But related into that, is whenever possible, you want to go for a kill, not a disable. Headshots are always wonderful, especially when you remember that if your opponent is blocking their head effectively, they're often blocking their own vision. So if you're threatening their head a lot, they might not be seeing what you're doing. Might be a good tactic for you. Just something to think about. Same with torso shots. If all you can get is an arm or a leg and disable, take it. I'm not saying don't take it. But that should be if there's nothing better to hit. Because your goal is to win. Your goal is not to snipe an arm, it's to win. Don't be a dick by aiming for the dick, because that's just being a dick. But if you get a kill by stabbing him in the dick, but you really don't want to do it so often that you end up with a dirty nickname, because, it's the SCA. Everybody's got horrible nicknames. You really don't want to be groin sniper. Another targeting thing to think about, and it's a bad habit that a lot of newbies come into the sport with. I did, a lot of other people did, and it comes from being raised on a diet of sword fighting movies. Don't target their stick. Their stick can kill you. You can't kill their stick. I have watched so many times, I have fun with opponents that are locked into it, where I'll hold my stick out here and they'll throw a shot that only ever could hit my stick and is no threat to me. Don't do that. Don't throw a shot directly into the strong part of your opponent's shield. You're not going to move the strong part of their shield. Throw it into one of the weak spots of their shield. Try to throw around the stick. Because their tools, why are you targeting them? Don't. So, a lot of targeting is about angles. One of the first, and it's angles within angles. One of the first angles to think about is the angle of your target. There is a reason that armor, both modern tank armor and ship and armors and historical on people armors are angles, and that you're outside angles because things have a tendency to glance off. You don't want to necessarily aim for those outside angles on your opponent in the way their body is shaped. You want to aim for those inside angles where your stick will bounce into the target instead of skip off, which is why if their arm's out here and you're arm sniping, which I said not your main goal, you want to bring it into the crook of the elbow. You don't want to bring it up and out. Because if your targeting's off a little bit, you're going to bounce right into that elbow crook. If your targeting is a little bit off on the outside angle, you might bounce completely off and away and not actually hit what you want. And so that's a very important thing to think about. When your opponent is standing there in their guard, you want to throw into armpits, into the crook between the neck and the shoulder, into the top of the thigh, bottom of the gut so it bounces into the hip. Those are the places you want to aim into, because if you've got slop, the physics of the situation is going to work with your slop, not against your slop. And honestly, if you're listening to my videos for important new things, you've got slop. You're new. The other thing with angles you really want to think about is your movement. Because if your opponent is squared away tight like this, there's not many targeting opportunities. But if you step from directly in front to the side, so that you're now at this angle, there's a lot of openings. If you step over to this side, there's a lot of openings. It's why the diagonal movement is very important. It's why I stress the hell out of it in the movement videos. because you can take that diagonal shot and throw to where you know those openings are going to be before I have a chance to react to them. Because my whole defense right now against that camera is pretty tight. But if that camera moved and didn't make you seasick, I'm wide open. I've got to try to close that. Think about it. That movement stuff applies just as much, if not more so, when you're fighting against one of those weirdos that fights with just a big stick instead of a stick and a board. Because right here, against the camera, I've got a lot of offensive options and maintaining a defensive option on that center line. If that camera were to make that diagonal step, all of a sudden I'm wide open. And while I've got more movement on that stick because of the way where they stepped, I'm probably going down. I'm probably getting lit up. And if they stepped the other direction, they're in the beginnings of my power arc, so I haven't even generated enough power while they're lighting me up. Things to think about. Angles, angles, more angles, angles, and angles. Hopefully you found this week's episode to be informative. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell, hit like, all that fun stuff. And remember, we're here to kill our friends, not hurt them.